You may be wondering why this video is so heckin' late. Why this is in 4K. And where are we? Well, we're in my room, silly. First, a wizard is never too late, nor is he too early.
He arrives precisely when he means to.
And I did. Secondly, it's none of your business. This is my channel, and I'm doing this for me. I had actually scheduled to make this video a few times before, but I put it off just because I hadn't really seen enough movies from last year, nor the big ones getting the buzz. And when New Year's came around and I still hadn't seen Dune 2, I knew I had some work to do. And then when award season came around, I knew I had a lot more work to do. And I'm sorry, but you're high if you think I'm gonna pay over $20 to go see Madame Perez, Folie à Peu, or Dog the Hunter. Actually, that isn't true. I would pay to see a movie made about 2004, Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Social services, crackhead! Yee-haw! Come here, motherfucker! Come on, brother!
Despite my best attempts, though, on screen now, these are the films I did not see last year. They were on my radar. I just missed them. They weren't on streaming. I missed them in the theater. What can I say? I'll get to them at some point, I hope. With the case with most of these movies, I'd gone to go see them in the theater with the notion that I would go home to write a video and review about it to post it here. When that just never really happened, apart from when I guess I had something to say. And besides last year's cinema, I saw a lot of really good shows too that are going to be included here. But before I do that, I'd just like to address my absence. I'm gonna chop it up mostly just to a genuine lack of motivation and ambition, which sounds lazy, I know, but trust me. I had a lot of ideas that would have normally turned into videos, edits, or shorts, but I never really jumped on those creative impulses, or wrote anything, or took to my broke-ass computer to edit, which upsets nobody but me. In addition to that, I had bought this fancy DSLR camera last spring, which I had recorded 150 gigabytes worth of videos and footage on from throughout last year, and when I had finally worked up the motivation to move it onto my computer for some Halloween and summer editing, I had accidentally formatted my SD card in a matter of seconds, wiping everything I had had but a few shitty pictures and videos after days of trying to recover it on my computer, which really took a toll on my ambition and kind of sent me into this cycle of failing my ideas and not really speaking to my creative side, which slowly withdrew my capacity to make this video and a lot more like it last year. Though I had a fortunate amount of time to watch and rewatch some really great films and experience some spectacular video games last year that I still hope to speak to at some point, I'm not going to make promises I can't keep. I just hope by announcing on here that I have future plans that I won't so easily disappoint myself by not seeing an idea through in the future. Like, for years now, I've wanted to make a video talking about all the games I've been impacted by and how. Same thing with certain movies, shows, directors, and music. Plus, I've been sitting on a throne of old media that I've been eager to share for years, so I can finally express some of these feelings that I've kind of lost touch with due to not seeing ideas through and just a genuine overindulgence in activities that lack ambition. Plus, I'm still paying for Premiere Pro, and it's like $40 a month, and I haven't been doing jack. So I just wanted to briefly cover my absence and apologize, but also thank any viewers I ever have or had, to those who take part in my videos by liking, subscribing, commenting, engaging in any form, or even being a part in the making of, as a decent amount of you are. It motivates me further to do what I love. So I hope we can get back on track. Thank you for being here. Now with all that soppy bullshit out of the way, let's get this party started. In no particular order, I saw over 20 new movies and shows in the year 2024 and talked about 3 of them. So here's my semi-off-script thoughts on some of last year's finest. Then after we're going to talk about what's to come in this year, and then that's that. I know it's been some time, so I won't have loads to say. I'll try and keep it brief with each, since I already know this is going to be one of my longer videos. I've been writing for like 20 hours.
What's up, baby? And it ain't no good. Who you gonna call?
I went alone for this one back in February since I'm somewhat of a Ghostbusters fan, and the previous one wasn't so bad, apart from milking nostalgia from the throwback teat, which is too many recycled beats and, hey look, it's the da-da-da, you know, which this one suffers from a little bit less, but it's not without its problems. This one's finally set in New York, which I appreciated, despite being filmed on a horrific blue screen for many locations.
The kids are green screen, but more than that, they couldn't shoot this in New York City.
Of course.
So none of the background is real.
I was feeling that.
I found the grandiose story threads to be somewhat entertaining to follow, given we're with new characters tackling a new mystery. However, this one suffered by just overdoing it with a bloated story and too many characters trying to solve everything. A lot happens in this film, so much so that you could have made it straight to streaming miniseries out of it that explores the same story aspects with a bit more coverage, and it would have been fine for it. You got Kumail the Fire God, a ghost teen gay romance, a teen straight not gay romance, a paranormal science team, returning ghosts and characters, new interesting villains, and for some reason Patton Oswalt. There's also just some straight up weird, crude humor in this that I didn't find fitting at all.
Nice sex dungeon. Okay, Dottie.
Not a sex dungeon. This was my daddy's place, my grandmother's.
Nipple stuff. Iconic.
Did you say nipple stuff?
Yeah, and that it's iconic.
But a couple parts I did actually enjoy.
Have you ever experienced deja vu?
No.
Have you ever experienced deja vu? That's pretty good.
My memory's fading on this one, which is a testament to it just being pretty forgettable and just fine. At this point, it seems like we've kind of forgotten that the main joke was they're exterminators, but for ghosts. Ghostbusters is supposed to be a dry, witty, working man's comedy, but this has just kind of gotten out of hand. It's for kids now. And if you take the nostalgia goggles off, you'll see that this franchise was definitely at its best when we had a dry and testy 80s comedy that capitalized on that premise. 5 out of 10. You could do better.
What? Oh my God. Well, there you go. That kind of ticks a lot of boxes.
Oh boy, I'm such a lucky boy. This made me so happy. I've talked Fallout once on here briefly before, but from my experience wandering New Vegas, the Commonwealth, and even Appalachia lately, I'd say I'm a pretty big fan of this world. But nothing made me appreciate my love for the Wasteland quite like this series. First off, I really commend the studio for opting to explore a new side of the franchise rather than attempting to retell a player experience in a series or film, as seen time and time again, a little success. From the first scene, I was absolutely engaged. The intro just floors you with devastation and intrigue. Then when we jump into the Wasteland 200 years later, I immediately could tell, holy shit, this show nailed the tone. Impressively, the show yields some of the best set and prop design ripped right from the games, with also a perfect reflection on the series' whimsy, humor, and grim nature of war, all tied together in colorfully chaotic action, remaining extremely faithful to the games. Not to mention, the effects were quite well done for a show, I found. If you're someone who knows not of the games and tries to watch this, thankfully I still think it holds up just fine due to its unique structure and featuring new characters, that of the immortal cowboy, a child soldier finding a cause, and the impressionable vault dwellers, all working to uncover a grim truth beneath the reality. The performances given by Walton Goggins were very enthralling to see unfold and sympathize with as Cooper Howard, then to piece the horrors behind Vault Tech in the finale through Lucy's eyes really tied things together and got me pumped to see what's to come in New Vegas for Season 2. As you can tell, this show excited me. It also reignited my love I had for the Wasteland, made me jump back into the games, so much so that I took back to Fallout 4 to finally finish it after just casually playing and putting off the ending for so many years. Maybe one day I'll speak to my experience there, but for now, the Fallout show, Season 1 that is, gets a strong 9 out of 10. Can't wait to see what they're cooking in Season 2.
Let me in now, and it can be nice. Make me go now.
Overhyped, yes. Still enjoyed, yeah. Nick Cage going ape shit, definitely yes. But was it the scariest thing since sliced bread, like advertised? I think not. Story follows FBI agent Lee Harker, played by Micah Monroe, in her pursuit to catch the killer known as Longlegs, and what happens when Harker discovers a deep personal connection with the psycho. The promotional run for this movie had everyone under the sun thinking this would be an exceptionally frightening story featuring plenty Nick Cage memes, but he's definitely tastefully on screen. Oz Perks here definitely knows who he's directing and uses Cage to depict the diabolical Longlegs with such disturbing incompetence and unpredictable nuance. He's maybe only in like 4 scenes, but each one had at least one obscure performance which added intrigue towards the Longlegs and was to come in the conclusion, which I didn't fully see coming. There were a couple decent surprises by the finale that proved pretty effective, but you're also kind of left questioning if the story's actually better for it. Like if the paranormal direction and the other twists this took kind of help exceed or fail the expectations held going into a movie being compared to Silence of the Lambs. I like the use of the 4:3 aspect ratio accompanied by the cold winter tones, which added a sense of claustrophobia and hopelessness to a mostly slow and droning, paranoia-filled watch that'll have you scanning corners and anticipating scares when it's a little more thoughtful than that. A few scenes in this definitely could have been cut down for brevity's sake, and I would have appreciated some personality from Oz Perks, given he would direct the horror comedy The Monkey a year later with a lot more personality. I think we could have gotten like 1 or 2 lighthearted moments. It would have definitely helped me get through some of the more sluggish shit. I hate to be that guy, but since we're already playing that game, I'm more of a Silence of the Lambs guy myself. 6 out of 10. Sorry. This one was just weird, but I can get behind it. I don't have a whole lot to say. There's no real plot or character progression. It's an indie horror film starring Justice Smith, telling the story of a lonely kid who befriends 2 older girls over their shared interest in a mysterious late-night nightmare horror show called The Pink Opaque, and what happens years later when his reality and identity is heavily questioned by those experiences. I know that was a lot to say. I found this to be kind of unique though, from its style being somewhat Lynchian and its use of dreamier colors and the unconventional telling of the narrative, and just the overall horror aspects being a metaphor for the existential fears coming from living a life you've robbed yourself of having and being not where you're supposed to be. Hell, I'll just give a spoiler warning, but this movie ends with our main guy letting out a desperate screech for help during his day job at a frickin' roller rink, just singing happy birthday because he realizes his life is not where it's supposed to be because he let his choices slip. Which is something that really struck a nerve with me. It made me kind of mad at myself for working the same shitty job for the last 5 years without doing anything about it, still making minimum wage. And it had me reflecting on all the people and opportunities I've turned away so I can continue living my stubborn ways, and what might happen if I don't take charge of my life, if I'm just gonna keep sitting in the passenger seat on my autopilot life unfolding its shitty course without doing anything, eventually in a rundown roller rink somewhere singing happy fucking birthday.
I'm dying right now!
So, I don't know if I'd recommend it. It was pretty different, but it was unique, and it made me think. So the filmmakers definitely succeeded. They did their job. Well done. Also, Fred Durst has like 2 lines, and Connor O'Malley had a surprise cameo that made me piss.
What the hell?
So this was like a 6.5 out of 10. Pretty good. Next one. I remember seeing the preview for this one before they showed Deadpool and Wolverine back in July, and I went with my dad. They showed the R-rated trailer in the preview, and the reactions from the audience, like, you could have sworn people were throwing up. People were gasping, retching, oh my godding. That trailer was perfect, and I was just like, oh my god, I have to buy a ticket. We gotta go see this. So a month later, he and I went back to the cinema and bought tickets for Alien Romulus, and I was pleasantly surprised. We were treated to a deeply atmospheric space horror with a thrilling new story to watch. A group of young mineral miners attempt to sneak onto a space station orbiting their planet with the objective of stealing space pods capable of helping escape to a better life. We see what goes wrong when we discover the secrets on board the Romulus. I found the setup was thoughtfully done. It takes its time clearly setting up the stakes, and all the characters have enough substance to work with that we actually somewhat care for their goals and want to see them make it out alive. Unlike in the previous films, which the rather lackluster characters are only really there as placeholders to showcase the xenomorph in its full terror, but this one depicts the horror as an unknown force with new forms, which certainly help magnify the scares into something unidentifiable, all the more terrifying. When situations do worsen, as does the tension, which was masterfully balanced, helped by the main cast of characters, who are all younger, which I think adds a sense of desperation to the circumstances, making the tension all the more engaging, seeing young people die. I think the establishment between the main two was a strong suit right away and remained a strong suit throughout the film. The performances from the main crew I thought were all great. David Johnson playing the android Andy particularly excelled. His face sells a lot of emotion while remaining subtly expressive, and there's also a lot of detail put into the production elements too. Like before I saw this, I made sure to watch Ridley Scott's first Alien from 1979 screen, and it definitely helped me catch some hidden background details. And with this taking place chronologically right after then, I really dug the retro-futuristic sci-fi green pixel clicky-clacky space tech that complements this world building and atmosphere. Not to mention, there were several gorgeous shots and innovative camera techniques that were really well done. Every time any aliens were on screen, I was left questioning if I was looking at a practical dude in a costume or a CG creation due to the countless practical effects used in the film, which I'm such a sucker for. Like when the mindset for the finished vision can be reflected by practical elements on set, not only does it sell performances, but it sells the scenes and the stakes. Like there's a couple parts where I didn't even want to move, because if I did, I'd be touching suspended acid blood or raising my body heat for the face huggers, man. And you guys know I like my movies with few characters and little time in a desperate setting, and after the slower intro and the exciting crash gets them stuck there, I felt like I was pretty on board too, pun intended. I've heard some people say that if they had a complaint, it would be that this one just maybe runs a little bit too long, and sure, the setup does take its time to get things going. However, the pacing was pretty on point, and in the third act, it's kind of typical for the alien movies to do the kind of, oh, Ridley's killed the alien, we're all safe, and then they sweep the rug from under you, and then there's a secret hidden boss, one more challenge for our hero to overcome, which I thought we already got since I was pretty exhausted by the end. Like, I was pretty glad to see that things were wrapping up in a way that I wanted to, and I was pretty happy. But then, of course, this movie has to have its secret final boss. But dude, once it shows up, it looks sickly terrifying with a cold, silent reveal, and I was like, oh man, the building is on fire, and I was back into it. So like, sure, this movie ends twice, like maybe you didn't need that last threat in the final 15 minutes, but I don't know. As batshit crazy as it got, I'm glad we got to see something new, and it was pretty creative, and I was so down for it. Good space horror movie, a lot more like it, please. 8.5 out of 10.
What is your favorite monkey?
Fat monkey.
Okay, how about you?
Spider monkey.
Okay, what about you?
Gangsta monkey.
If the last few years of pretty consistent theater going has taught me anything about going into the movies, it's that walking into a movie with little knowledge of expectations is definitely the way to go. It's what's yielded my favorite theater going experiences, and that's certainly been the most apparent with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I have seen zero of the other Planet of the Apes films, nor did I watch any previews for this one, so I really had no idea what I was getting in for, but I was gleefully joyed when I was actually somewhat moved by this epic. The story is set centuries after humankind disappears, religious hierarchies and conflicting ideations are established as we follow the journey of Noah in his quest to rescue his kidnapped tribe. The opening surely takes its time to build the foundation for our empathy on the situation, but that's hardly a complaint when we're engrossed with this rich world building with countless shots containing a depth of story within just the background, which was all brought to life thanks to the absolutely stunning effects showcased in this thing. You almost forget that you're looking at monkeys and not just real people. Seriously, it's amazing to me that in the modern age you can craft a story featuring only CG characters interacting in a way that speaks closer to the human experience than watching actual human characters. Where this movie succeeded the strongest was definitely in its ability to make you care. It's got a beefy runtime clocking in at just under 2.5 hours, and it definitely feels about that long, I'd say. But with this being an adventure film, you're definitely on the journey as well, and the way that Fellowship is kind of structured, like there's kind of a few different movies within this one, with the setup in the beginning, then the adventure, and a long conclusion, if you know what I mean. Like by the time we meet the beachside religious clan and their intelligent yet scarily psychotic leader Proxima Caesar, there's a whole other movie starting when we get there. Also, Kevin Durant's really hammered it up in the role as Proxima Caesar, and you can tell he really enjoyed doing his thing.
What a wonderful day!
Like if you watch any interview with him, he's probably gonna do the monkey thing. Kobo was also really fun to spend time with, and I'm glad to see that we had a human character contrast with them all and also proved kind of useful in the story. The idea of depicting societal weak points through nature added layers of empathy with Noah and his clan's rise against Proxima Caesar's structured religious clan in a way that felt really triumphant and earned. If you can't tell, I enjoyed my time spacing out in the theater, engaging with this, no distractions. However, there were just a couple moments when I was like, okay, maybe get me out of here now. I might be ready to go home. So it probably might be better suited to stream at home at your leisure, but I definitely recommend it. Almost anyone can get into it. Even my aunt texted me asking me if I wanted to go see it with her. We instead saw The Fall Guy, which I ended up enjoying a lot more on a repeat watch. But yeah, pleasant monkey movie with some grace. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. I I went into this one riding off of the high I got watching Gladiator I the previous night, an epic, soulful, exciting film that balances intense action with palatable drama, and I was quite moved by the classic, so you can imagine my excitement going in to see the sequel, which perhaps left me maybe just a tad disappointed. For starters, this is definitely a story that could have been left untold, but I'm thankful Ridley Scott's back directing, as the atmosphere and vibe is quite on par with the first, yet done on a larger scale, literally, with the arenas, but also the challengers. But as you know, bigger isn't always better, because where this movie makes up its spectacle, the story is kind of lacking in substance. Since once again, this is a movie about a vengeful fighter who enters the ranks to challenge a tyrannical Roman Empire that he secretly has a blood connection within, which if you can't tell is essentially just the first one again. To few successes, this movie draws a lot of parallels with the first, with loads of repeat shots, flashbacks, and story beats. Connie Nielsen is back in her role as well, along with Paul Mescal, Pedro Pascal, Denzel Washington, Joseph Quinn, and Fred Hetchinger from White Lotus, who are all putting on fantastic performances, but have so many scenes recapping the events from the previous film and just yapping with each other pointlessly that it becomes a little bit obvious that this is somewhat of a pointless sequel that exists so Paramount can just make a quick buck off of a once-beloved franchise, and if Russell Crowe objects, I object. However, this film does distinguish itself throughout, and especially in the third act with a couple surprises that left me a little bit more engaged during the drawn-out conclusion with Denzel's character, who needless to say is giving the superior performance and was just as entertaining to watch as the moments of intense action. In the first movie, I nearly shat my pants when the tigers came out, but now there's crazy baboons, people riding on rhinos, and fucking sharks. I've heard a lot of people whining about the water and sharks in the Coliseum, like not making much sense. Sure, it's a crazy choice to do that, but it's not like they have freaking laser beams attached to their freaking heads. Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained?
I was in fact quite entertained. The dude was biting monkeys and cutting off heads. What's not to like? But is that enough in the end? Paul Mescal, despite looking like a Roman statue and being a phenomenal actor, doesn't have much to work with here and doesn't quite live up to the presence of
Maximus Decimus Meridius,
which leads to all the scenes between the fighters being much more slow in comparison to the excitement I got seeing Denzel and everyone on top of the Roman Empire arguing and whatnot. I still found myself enjoying another epic gladiator story with some fun moments, solid effects, and engaging performances. Honestly though, I did leave just a little disappointed. You could have done more with the amazing cast, cut some fat off here, and it wouldn't have suffered for it, given that the runtime is already an off-pace 2.5 hours. However entertaining it is, I still think it deserves a 7.2 out of 10.
Oh, it's our arch nemesis, the wind!
As with the case with Gladiator II, Paramount once again goes back to reflect on their beloved franchises to see if they can make a quick buck. But this sham was no sham. In fact, it yielded many clams. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, forget it. Anyways, apparently everyone and their dog was going to see this movie, so I decided to take my mom to go watch Twisters, aka Twister 2. And man, I can confidently say I can't remember being this horrified of the wind since, like, Final Destination or some shit.
The wind just drove a car. Stop the presses!
The wind is driving a car. Does it have a license, though?
No! What? So things are just walking. What the hell?
I'm serious. I can't watch those movies. They'll give me nightmares. I tried to watch the new trailer. I had to turn it off. I don't know if you've seen it, but check it out. It's like unwatchably, like, terrifying. Seriously though, the opening to this movie was truly frightening. It appropriately showcases the real devastation and tragedy tornadoes can yield. Then from then on, I was just kind of waiting for it to top that initial scene, which actually kind of left me a little bit starved throughout. I think the chemistry held between Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar Allen certainly carried me for most of the film. Powell really gets the shine in everything he does nowadays and is playing a role quite similar to what he did in Top Gun Maverick, that of the brash, headstrong stuntman who becomes somewhat good in the end. And Daisy Allen's quite good in her role too. We understand her lack of action comes from fear, but like, I think she could have had more spunk. We know why she's there, her motivations made sense, but I could not remember anything of significance she really did. Apart from them, the supporting cast is pretty fine, I guess. The side characters are lacking in a bit in comparison with the first film, in which the entire supporting cast in 96 were nice additions of levity and much more fun to watch in my opinion. I don't know, I just thought they could have had more to do, since this really is just the Glenn Powell show. But I like the addition of Anthony Ramos and David Corenswet, whose small screen time got me excited excited to see what he's going to do this year as Superman. It's kind of difficult living up to the cult following the first movie gained, but this film does nail the tone pretty well. It feels like Twister, and wherever this film is missing in character and makes up for in spectacle, containing several jaw-dropping moments of sheer loud devastation that made me consider the reality of living somewhere like this. I'm glad I saw this in the theater, not just because the finale also unfolds in a small cinema, similar to the drive-in climax from the first, but it's shot really well on 35mm film, both adding to the reality and the sheer scale, making this feel like an effective, scary movie at times. I just found it a little bit sluggish, so I'm giving it like a 6 out of 10. I just happened to recently catch this one after buying a Crave subscription. Since originally I had this bit planned for last year's catch-up video where I would stop the video halfway through, be like, oh, Dune's coming out, and then I would take the camera and I'd go see Dune and talk about Dune. And that was opening weekend too. I regret not doing that. This is a crowd-pleasing epic adventure with an urgent sense of climax that's amazing direction by Denis Villeneuve makes a 3-hour epic feel like a masterwork of pacing and tension that I didn't fully get out of watching part 1. Watching part 1 in the theater back in 2022 with my dad was a sluggish snooze fest in comparison to this. I was really into the story and the world, but we had a really hard time getting past the deathly dry pace and quiet yet sometimes droning score. Knowing that beyond those critiques, the sequel would deliver on my expectations, and eventually it did. Here, I was thankfully treated to a reasonable pace of information I could follow with rich new world building and careful attention to detail, adding the depth I was expecting from the universe from the start, also with a stellar cast of characters new and returning. Florence Pugh, Chris Walken, Stellan Skarsgård, and
Javier Bardem.
Yes.
they take the characters in directions I wouldn't have expected them to see, but Paul's arc overall remains the best and was exactly what I was looking for. There are many moments he gets to prove himself as a rumored messiah to lead the Fremen and look cool doing so. Austin Butler also comes in and gets to ham it up as Fade Hrothgar, a murder-obsessed warrior in the Harkonnen. I've heard people complain that his first scene was kind of out of place and that his character is too distracting, but I think the switch up in the setting with the monotone and all these weird dudes broke from any repetition and allowed for a neat little Gladiator moment showing the brutality of the Harkonnen. In fact, I enjoyed all the time seeing the bad guys. Bautista turns it up to 11, Stefan is properly hateable, back to Austin Butler. Sure, like I get it, he's a little distracting, he just needlessly kills everyone, which could have left him feeling out of place, but when that adds to his cunning screen presence and his unpredictable evil, isn't that a strength? I also admire that you really get a sense that we're in a desperate war, where dramatic vengeance is in order and eventually makes up the union and reunion of characters feeling triumphant along the way. I also appreciated that there's differing views depicted amongst the Fremen society regarding Paul and his mom, and also how this world is used by various tribes of Fremen who travel via Sandworm and use the landscape to separate factions. I found that pretty neat. Chani and Paul's story was quite endearing to watch unfold, even leaving me a little bit struck by the end. Throughout the film, I was entirely engaged and engrossed with each act, then the third act fucking brings it hard. Like, I would have loved to have seen something like this in the theater. Needless to say, this might have been the best shot movie of last year too, with so much story just being conveyed in simple imagery and camera movements, along with its effective editing and lighting. On top of that, the effects are truly mind-blowing with textures unlike anything I've ever seen. This film is oozing with atmosphere and just the right artistic choices. I've heard this one strays from the novel a tad, whereas part 1 and the original were a little more closely tied with the source material, but I would imagine the direction taken in this one is better off for our characters, even with them ending once again leaving room for a continuation, but surely leaving me more fulfilled than the last. Here you're getting the complete package, and I'm excited to see what comes next. I'm glad Dune has thus far been a success, and even compared to films like Lord of the Rings, here's hoping they can stick the landing with whatever comes next in Dune Messiah. This one gets a 9 out of 10. Last October, I happened to be in the city doing some Halloween shopping and filming, and I wanted to end the trip with a movie, but nothing was really coming out. Like, I had already seen Beetlejuice, so I committed a big cinema sin. And I'm sorry, but I paid actual money to go see one of those god-awful Sony Spider-Man movies that don't have Spider-Man in them.
Venom!
I don't think he's allowed to.
I walked into a half-filled cinema opening weekend for Venom 3, and I think I got wiped by the Men in Black and I walked out because I don't remember anything. This one was just forgettable. I really had to do some mental digging to come up with things to say, and here's what I got. It's obscenely messy. For some reason, this is a buddy road trip movie that's surprisingly short runtime, spends little screen time with the main duo. As for some reason, the conclusion to this trilogy now wants to establish new characters and story threads that don't do anything and have no payoff. There's like hardly any returning characters Like, I have no idea who buys a ticket coming to see military scientists arguing for half this movie. This is the last dance, for God's sake. I want a fucking boogie. Yet there's probably only like 3 action scenes with Venom since they introduced this stupid, lazy concept, which if Eddie becomes Venom, he's gonna ping the bad guys. So we're forced to spend time seeing Eddie just fucking walking across the desert, trying to distance these dumb CG symbiote dogs, along with the military team at Area 52, who, I'm not even joking you, are the real bad guys, despite the promotion having you believe that Null is the main bad guy, when he's barely even in one scene. If I forced myself to be nice, I'd say that the connection between Eddie and Venom is definitely a series strong suit. The best parts were when there's a tender moment between them, or when they're just kind of wasting time with random characters. Like, there's a couple funny parts, but I've always been of the opinion that Venom should have been rated R. It fits the character's humor, it would have made for leagues better action sequences. However, the action we get and all the ways the symbiote is used is pretty creative, but something I wish we could have had consistent from the first film, not just in the conclusion when we bring in all the symbiote fun. The best thing about it is that it's 90 minutes. If you've at all enjoyed Venom 1 or 2, even from a stupidly funny angle, there's no doubt you'll probably like this one. It's definitely the strongest of the 3, but in the end, we're left with a messy movie that does more taking away from the main foundation of the series than adding anything by just putting in throwaway characters and throwaway plot points. Come on. This movie ends with a manipulative montage set to that sad Peter Griffin song.
Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were.
I heard people sniffling. Meanwhile, I was in there chuckling. So obviously, there's some audience to the series. It's just not me. Personally, I think none of these movies should have ever happened. Clearly, it's been a waste of studio resources from the start. Yet Sony persists to crank out these garbage films about not even the good Spider-Man villains that don't feature a single likable hero or even likable characters, and they will always flop. So for God's sake, let this be the last one. Let this be the last dance. Alright? Alright? Alright. 9 out of 90. Get the hell out of here. Next movie. I want to try and do a speed run here. Let's make this one quick. I haven't seen a whole lot of buzz surrounding this movie. It apparently got a theatrical release, but I happened to catch it streaming a few months ago, and it's pretty much exactly what you'll expect going into a tender coming-of-age comedy about 2 teens who eagerly jump at the opportunity to purchase and operate a snack shack for the summer. But I found enough soul and levity here that I'll give it my recommendation. It takes place in the summer of the 90s, so this is a very vibrant, fun, and free film, where the main 2 are almost stupidly eager and motivated, yet still entertaining enough to watch for hours, since the humor was never tiring from both Gabriel LaBelle and Connor Sherry, playing off their surroundings and each other as vulgar, charismatic leads. Eventually, there's a love triangle and things come full circle in a way that's somewhat expected, but it still hit just right for me, with some surprising heart when we take a turn into dramatic territory. On a $4.5 million budget, director Adam Reinmeyer is able to do a lot and proves to me that they sure don't make them like this anymore. But you can. This was a home run. I'm glad to see a film like this got a theatrical release, though it didn't really get a big audience turnout. I still think it's worth a watch. I'm not going to give it a score. I'll just say I recommend it. I had been eagerly awaiting this one since I saw the trailer early last year. Being a fan of the program and all the names it's given us, I was enthralled to see a story was coming out detailing the final 90 minutes before NBC's very first broadcast of Saturday night. It's a story that they tell in a really interesting way that makes it awesome for anyone. Anyone can no doubtably point out the show's significance in the pop culture world since its birth from the 70s, holding major influence over the media landscape on countless matters and managing to stay consistently relevant all these decades later. With this, of course, being a comedy film, I still wasn't expecting as many laugh-out-loud moments as I got. There's plenty of background gags, quick-cut jokes, and one-liners you'll just straight-up miss on your first watch. Certainly I did. I've seen it 4 times now, and I'm still finding new bits to enjoy. Entirely 90 minutes of real time, this thing frickin' moves. Characters gracefully bring us to new scenes, held by conversations, or cut back to the clock, reminding us of the stakes, which was all tied together perfectly with effective editing. Probably my favorite of last year. It really feels as though you're stepping into an unfinished set for a show that might not make it to air. Everyone's whizzing past you, literally assembling the stage until airtime. The lines are so quick, cameos aplenty, which leads to a sense of urgency, so much so show that when things start going wrong for Lorne and the executives suggest that we might not make it to air, we know how much dedication went into this, along with the many hardships endured to make the final push all the more desperate for our characters. As for the performances, everyone here is doing career best in their roles, even with Nicholas Braun filling in for Benny Safdie as Andy Kaufman, who ended up portraying 2 roles. The standouts for me would have been Rachel Sennett, Willem Dafoe as an NBC exec, Corey Michael Smith as a preppy Chevy Chase, Dylan O'Brien as a perked-up Dan Aykroyd, Matt Wood as a delicate John Belushi, and Gabriel Abel, who went from playing a 15-year-old in Snack Chat, which I just saw before this, to leading this film as a 30-year-old Lorne Michaels in the same year. Like, this guy's got range. With so many icons here like Jim Henson, Billy Crystal, George Carlin, and the many other names, big and small, I was surprised none of the actors portraying them felt annoying or were performing in a way that would come off like an impression, but rather like they were capturing the essence of their personalities in a way that felt very fitting with the direction by Jason Reitman. This too was shot on 35mm film, which added a tinge of realism. The colors along with the wardrobe and set design was incredibly fitting for the timepiece, and there were countless one-take moments using well-choreographed cast and crew, elevating this film from a standard comedic thriller to a technical marvel. Whether you're a longtime fan of the program or someone who can kind of spot its decline in cutting-edge comedy from the last decade or so, like myself, there's no doubt that if you have any shred of appreciation for show business and the several challenging processes that would go into making it on air, please check this out. You will not be disappointed. This was a total thrill ride from beginning to end. It's quick, it's sweet, informative, and inspiring. I wish it got more buzz come award season. This was my personal favorite of last year. 10 out of 10. I got to stream this one upon its Disney Plus release, given it had been on my radar for some time, and then I was pumped to see it getting some awards recognition come last season. A Real Pain, written and directed by Jesse Eisenberg, stars both himself and his cousin, played by Kieran Culkin, who reunite for a trip to Poland to see their deceased grandmother's home. Going in, I was expecting more laughs. This is definitely more of a drama film with a sprinkle of comedy to sweeten the message. However, I found the comedic moments we get definitely felt more earned, making them lighthearted and sweet. Kieran Culkin just flails charisma in anything he's in, and here he was perfect at showing both his irritable and tender sides in a manner that was quite realistic to me, and to many others obviously, since it became a real joy seeing Kieran win both the SAG Awards and eventually his Oscar for his performance, only to give the most hilarious and fitting speeches. Not enough people mention Jesse Eisenberg though. Like, I could see how he's just doing the Eisenberg OCD thing here too, but it really works in the film for balancing off his lost and loose cousin. Like, I could really relate to him in parts, and luckily he gets a standout monologue that was quite moving. This movie nearly made me tear up when we get to see how each lead thinks of the other, how they deal with losses, and what they're like when they're apart and eventually together. What really helped the balance between them was how they also got to play off the others they travel with. I found the supporting cast in the tour group were all really great additions to the story. They all felt like real people who also had some well-written significance for our main duo. It's shot fairly efficiently and simplistic, which I see as a benefit since a lot of the framing and cold digital look added the formality of being, well, on a Holocaust tour, before situations become either hilarious or somber. The script is really solid. This is a film full of heavy conversations and reserved characters learning how to respond to emotions of their own and to others, all done on a scale that carried me through and felt cinematic. The director really lets you into his characters, the world, and the healing process. It left me feeling a kind of bitter happy by the end, and I felt like I saw myself in this film. I was encouraged to reflect on my emotions, others, and my family with a closer love and appreciation, even for the flaws. 8.4 out of 10.
Some people are saying that your new music sounds a lot like Bob Dylan.
Well, maybe Bob Dylan sounds a lot like me. You know, how come nobody ever asked Bob Dylan why you sound so much like Dewey Cox?
Mailboxes drip like lampposts in the twisted birth canal of the Coliseum. Rim job fairy teapots mask the temper.
Directed by James Mangold, a complete unknown, tells the story of controversial folk icon Bob Dylan from the beginning of his career to his eventual electric switch up and the controversy surrounding himself and this movement. Mangold takes a unique approach in telling the story in a way that's different than most music biopics I've seen, even in this year from Bob Marley. He opts to tackle one segment of his life rather than covering an extensive career in a grandiose way, as seen in other films like Bohemian Rhapsody or even in Mangold's other work directing Walk the Line. This played as a huge strength for me as we really get engrossed with the 60s culture and get to see the social implications of world events on Bob's surroundings as he struggles to do what's right for him and others. Chalamet is doing a phenomenal job in the role. He took 5 years years learning guitar and all Bob's cadences to the point where it truly sounds and even looks like him. Edward Norton disappears into his role as Pete Seeger, as does Boyd Holbrook, who steals every scene he has as a fun-loving Johnny Cash. The heart of the movie definitely centers on capturing the inspiration and significance an artist like Bob Dylan held for folk music, which by the end had me appreciating its message by capitalizing on the expectations of fame, which is something unique for a film like this. So for that alone, I'll give it my recommendation, 8 out of 10. So that just about does it. That was 14 different movies and shows I saw in the year 2024. Well, the ones I wanted to talk about at least. I didn't talk about all of them, sorry. I just know that this is already running probably pretty long. I definitely had a really good experience going to see Deadpool and Wolverine opening night. It was a really good audience for a good summer flick. Everybody was into it and they were making noises. It felt like going to see an old Marvel movie. I like that. Romulus was definitely one of my favorite movies I saw too. The Fall Guy was great, but my numero uno spot I'm definitely saving for Saturday night. I thought that movie was pretty awesome. I could watch it any day. I'll quickly say though, Ricky Stenicki was a good little comedy. Its style felt very reminiscent of some of my favorite comedy movies, kind of like Dumb and Dumber and Something About Mary. And then you can imagine I looked up the director, directed by Peter Farrelly. And I'm glad to see he still got it. It kind of reminded me of those old Apatow comedies too. And I've always been of the opinion that studio comedies definitely deserve their place in the industry, yet we don't really get them as much. Now they just go straight to streaming, and we used to get lots. But I just feel like we haven't gotten an outright goofy comedy in a while. So I'm glad to see something like this. And John Cena can also be pretty hilarious at times. There were some really funny moments. There's so many good jokes and a lot of good bits that at one point I was kind of considering this to be up there with some of my other favorite comedies. I just think it felt a little too modern in a way that might date it poorly, and the ending was pretty forgettable, but with few comedic misses and so many daring swings in regards to the humor. I'm glad this came out. I'm glad we got it. Oh, and I guess I'll quickly mention The Boys Season 4 too. And I would have done a video for it too, since I kind of have a lot to say about the show as a whole, but I've been working my shitty day job and being lazy. So in regards to this season, I pretty much would have just said that I think the real world commentary on politics and superhero fatigue has always been a draw besides the intense action and crude humor, but this time the balance certainly stumbles a little bit into almost overdoing it with the real world. I found it coming off as just a little forced this time, but I still thoroughly enjoyed the 8 hours of new material from a show this fresh and innovative. Closer to the end of the season, I was definitely enjoying it more to the first part and contrasting it with other seasons, which probably had me more gripped with the first 3 episodes compared to season 4, since this one does take a few episodes to get the ball fully rolling. Lastly, I think the new additions with Firecracker and Sage added some challenges and levity in all of this, and there were a couple plot twists and shock moments that were decently effective. I'm pretty pumped to see what's coming next in season 5, if it is the last season. So for now, season 4, it's like a 7. It's like a 7 out of 10. Alright, now that's all the movies and shit out of the way. We can finally finish what's coming in this year. I think we got a lot more work to do, because apparently shows coming out. We got Stranger Things, a bunch of other stuff. We're at the point where both DC and Marvel are now gearing up to reinvent themselves for a new run, and I'm pumped to see that we're getting a Fantastic Four film that looks pretty good. And with all the new announcements in the MCU, I can finally say I'm excited for an Avengers film. That's the first time I've said that in 6 years. The new James Gunn Superman movie looks like they pretty much nailed the tone of the old movies and the comics. I know it's being memed on a little bit, but I'm just so stoked, man. Please let it be good. It better bang. Same thing with the Minecraft movie, which is actually coming out this weekend. So if I get this video out in time, maybe I'll talk about it. If not, I'll just splice in my review here, which I hope doesn't happen. I just wanted to say, while I'm in the middle of editing this down for y'all, obviously that didn't happen. I got the Minecraft video out first, and I just wanted to say a couple things. One, I totally know that my mic quality is like going downhill throughout this video. Bear with me. And I have an immense amount of gratitude for how last video went. I was ecstatic when I looked at 150 views and 10 likes, and now we're over 800 views and over 20 likes. I got 10 new subscribers, which might not sound like a lot, but that's a lot for me, and a lot of nice comments too. So I'm super grateful. It's been a huge motivation for helping getting this video done. I'm so sorry it's taken forever. I hope you understand. But seriously, thank you. And if there's any of you returning from last video, welcome back. I hope I'm bearing well in your expectations. And if you're new, hi, thank you. thank you for watching. Subscribe, please, if you'd like, of course. I was completely filled with joy seeing the response I got for last video, so seriously, thank you. Anyway, let's wrap this sucker up. As weird as it looks, and it obviously being a movie for 12-year-olds, I'm still gonna try and shut my brain off. And for years I've wanted to make a video just on the game and its influence on me, so here's hoping that the movie somewhat delivers. Lilo and Stitch also looks surprisingly good. We're getting a new Tron movie, a new Michael Jackson movie, a new Jurassic World, which I couldn't care any less about, but I'm probably still going to talk about it. Also, hopefully the last Mission Impossible movie is coming out this year, though I can kind of get behind those movies. I like the last one, and they always have pretty cool stunts. And as for delays, we probably should have gotten Spider-Verse 3 by now, but we don't. Batman 2, I think, got pushed a year, which is unfortunate because I've been waiting for the sequel to the Batman. That movie kicks a lot of ass. But if all goes well, James Cameron will hopefully release Avatar 3 by the end of this year. So, fingers crossed, guys. But yeah, we got a bright year ahead of us. And if GTA 6 ends up coming out this year, I'm going to be busy. I hope I can get around to making more videos outside of just the usual reviews. And it would really help me out if you guys had any ideas to drop them below, letting me know. If you want to let me know how I'm being received, that's cool too. Or if you want to talk movies, I'd love to. Or if you want to talk about just anything, I'd be happy to. Please, if you enjoyed this video, liking and sharing helps me out a huge amount, not only with motivation and also spreading my channel. But thank you for watching my video and helping me get this year started. I'm glad I got to make this video and get all this off of my chest. So thank you. Remember to wear your seatbelt and wash your damn hands. Alright, I'll see you in the next one. Amen.
3. Jump with me. Us with me. Oh, with me. Such fun. Jump with me. Us with me. Jump. Oh, with me. Me.
Great big hip.